When two of the most outspoken women in Hollywood sit across from each other on live television, the room doesn't just heat up, it catches fire. Meryl Streep came to The View expecting to promote her most personal and emotional role yet. Instead, she walked straight into a verbal ambush from Joy Behar that would leave millions of viewers breathless. The morning had started quietly enough. The View's studio buzzed with its usual energy, producers darting around, cameras rolling into place, audience members eagerly adjusting in their seats and getting out their phones to record the day's big guest. Meryl Streep, an actress so iconic she hardly needed an introduction, was scheduled to appear, and everyone assumed it would be a respectful, even celebratory conversation about her latest film, a deeply introspective drama critics were already calling Oscar-worthy. But behind the polite smiles, a storm was gathering. Backstage, Meryl sat calmly, already mic'd up and flipping through her notes. She was dressed impeccably in an understated but elegant navy blouse and pearl earrings, the epitome of grace. But Maggie, her longtime assistant, noticed her pause briefly when she heard the distinctive laugh of Joy Behar from across the stage. Maggie leaned down and whispered, "Just don't let her get under your skin, okay?" Meryl only smiled as if to say, "Oh, please, I've handled far worse." That confidence would soon be tested. The band began playing and the co-hosts took their places as the audience erupted in cheers. Whoopi opened with her signature warmth. "We're here today with the incomparable Meryl Streep to talk about her incredible career and her moving new film," she said. "Welcome back, Meryl." "Thank you, Whoopi," Meryl replied graciously, her voice calm but warm. "It's always a pleasure to be here." But even in that moment, Joy Behar's eyes were already locked on her, a predator waiting to strike. "Always a pleasure, huh?" Joy said, leaning into her microphone with a grin that didn't reach her eyes. "Well, we'll see if you still feel that way in a few minutes." The audience chuckled uneasily. Meryl's smile faltered only slightly, though she quickly recovered. "I hope so," she replied smoothly. Whoopi began by asking about the film, letting Meryl describe its emotional weight and why she was drawn to the character. The discussion flowed politely at first, Meryl speaking thoughtfully about women's stories, aging, and resilience. But after only a few minutes, Joy cut in abruptly. "Meryl, don't you think it's time, to let the younger actresses have their turn?" Joy asked bluntly. "I mean, you've had a good run. You've won, 100 awards? Maybe it's time to step aside." The room fell silent. Even Whoopi and the other co-hosts shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Meryl blinked, her hands folded delicately in her lap. "Well, Joy," she said after a pause, "I believe good stories belong to everyone, regardless of age. As long as a story speaks to me or to an audience, I'll do my best to bring it to life." Joy leaned back, smirking. "Sure, but isn't it a little sad? Trying to hang on to the spotlight at your age? You used to be stunning. Now you're just competent." Several people in the front row gasped audibly. Meryl's jaw tightened, but just barely. She took a breath. "Competence, she said evenly, is underrated. And as for my age, well, one can hardly apologize for continuing to work when the offers keep coming." The audience burst into tentative applause, but Joy only narrowed her eyes, clearly not finished. "I just think it would be refreshing if some of you legends would step aside gracefully instead of clinging to roles you're too old for," she said, her tone now openly mocking. Meryl didn't flinch. She tilted her head slightly and said, "And I think it would be refreshing if some of us could celebrate women of all ages, so I shall, instead of pitting one generation against another." The audience cheered louder this time, but Joy's smile only hardened into something more dangerous. She glanced down at her cards as if preparing her next attack. Whoopi cleared her throat. "Let's talk about the movie a bit more," she began, but Joy cut her off. No, I think the audience wants to hear some real talk," Joy insisted, fixing her gaze back on Meryl. "Like how you lecture everyone on feminism and equality, but you've benefited from privilege your whole life." Meryl raised her eyebrows ever so slightly, her poise unshaken. "I believe using privilege to create opportunities for others is better than pretending it doesn't exist," she said. But Joy only laughed coldly. "Oh, please, don't pretend You've struggled like the rest of us. That's when Meryl's fingers tightened on the armrest of her chair, just barely. She met Joy's stare and said, "And don't pretend you know anything about my struggles, Joy." It was the first hint of steel in her voice, and it was only the beginning. The air in the studio had become so tense you could almost hear hearts beating. With each word, Joy Behar's questions grew sharper, more personal, while Meryl Streep responded with dignity and precision, turning each insult into a quiet victory. But even the most gracious of legends can only endure so much. Joy Behar leaned forward now, elbows on the table, her glasses catching the studio lights as she flipped through her note cards. "So Meryl," she said, her voice dripping with mock sweetness, "you say you care about creating opportunities for others. Yet here you are, hogging roles, taking parts that could go to younger, more vibrant actresses. How very feminist of you." Meryl's fingers intertwined in her lap, her eyes calm but unyielding. "I don't believe opportunities are finite," she replied, her tone measured. "We don't need to push one group down to lift another up." But Joy wasn't letting go. "Oh, come on, don't tell me you think you're still believable as a romantic lead or a heroine in her prime. Isn't it time to embrace supporting roles? Or better yet, retirement?" The audience collectively inhaled. Several in the crowd muttered disapprovingly, but Joy ignored them. She was on a mission now. Meryl's jaw tightened just slightly before she spoke. "Joy," she said gently, "we tell stories to reflect life, and life doesn't stop being meaningful after 40, or 50, or 70. A smattering of applause rose from the audience, but Joy rolled her eyes. "Oh, spare me the Hallmark card," she said. "You've had a charmed life, Meryl. You're not some scrappy underdog who clawed her way up. You're Hollywood royalty." Meryl gave a faint smile. "Royalty? That's a new one," she murmured. "If long hours, constant rejection, and a lifetime of hard work make me royalty, then I'll wear the crown with pride." Joy scoffed. "Oh, please. You're insulated. You're adored. You've never been criticized like the rest of us." Now Meryl's expression darkened, just slightly, though her voice remained cool. "I assure you, Joy, my career has not been immune to criticism, but I've learned to differentiate between constructive feedback and petty bitterness." The subtle dig drew murmurs from the crowd and a low whistle from somewhere in the back. Joy's lips thinned into a tight line. "Petty? I'm petty?" she said, her voice rising. "You're the one clinging to a career that's long past its expiration date." Meryl leaned back in her chair, her hands folded neatly as if to steady herself. "And you're clinging to a microphone," she said softly, "to throw stones at people you don't even know." The audience erupted into applause at that one, but Joy talked over them. "Oh, don't play the victim, Meryl. You've had it easy. Yale, stage-trained, every door opened for you while the rest of us scratched and clawed for scraps." For the first time, Meryl raised her voice. Not much, but enough to command attention. "I paid my dues, Joy. I still do. Every role I take, I prepare as if it's my first. No one hands you a 40-year career. You earn it every single day." That response silenced Joy for a brief, precious moment, but it didn't last. "Oh, really? Then why are people saying your last few performances have been, how did one critic put it, a shadow of her former self?" That one cut deeper than the rest, and for a heartbeat, Meryl's lips parted in shock. But then she smiled, faintly but unmistakably, and answered, "Art is subjective. Not everyone has the capacity to appreciate nuance." Another cheer from the audience. This time, even Whoopi raised her eyebrows as if impressed. But Joy plowed ahead. "You talk about nuance," Joy sneered, "but how nuanced can you be, playing the same icy matriarch over and over?" Meryl straightened her posture, her gaze steady. "Every character I play is a reflection of something real, something true. If that makes them icy in your eyes, perhaps that says more about you than me." This time the applause was louder, more sustained. Joy's cheeks flushed red, though whether from anger or embarrassment was unclear. But she wasn't done yet. "And what about your looks, Meryl?" Joy asked, almost triumphantly. "Don't you think it's time to admit that Hollywood keeps you around out of respect? Not because you're still, well, marketable? Gasps echoed through the studio. Even the other co-host looked genuinely horrified now. Meryl froze, but only for a moment. Then she tilted her head slightly, her expression serene. Joy, she said quietly, beauty fades, talent doesn't. The crowd erupted into full applause this time, many in the audience now clearly on Meryl's side. Joy sat back in her chair, visibly rattled for the first time, but her eyes were still glinting with something fierce and something personal. The tension in the room was suffocating now, the air heavy with unspoken challenges and rising emotions. Even Meryl, poised and composed as ever, gripped the armrests of her chair just a little tighter. And though no one knew it yet, they had only seen the opening act. The studio had become a battlefield, with every word from Joy Behar cutting sharper, and every response from Meryl Streep landing like a quiet but devastating blow. Rehook, but now Joy was done with subtlety. Her questions grew crueler, louder, and for the first time, even Meryl's composure began to crack. Joy sat forward now, her glasses glinting, as she jabbed a finger toward Meryl. You know what really bothers me, she said, her voice louder than ever. You stand there on red carpets, smiling and soaking up the applause like you've saved the world. But what have you really done? You play pretend for a living. You're not curing cancer. You're not changing lives. And Meryl's breath hitched slightly at that. But her reply came calm and measured as always. Joy, stories do change lives, she said softly. They teach empathy. They help people feel less alone. If my work has comforted even one person, then it was worth it. But Joy wasn't listening anymore. Oh, please, she scoffed. Comforted them how? By reminding them that some people get every break in life while the rest of us struggle? You and your ivory tower speeches make me sick. The audience gasped audibly. One of the other co-hosts leaned toward Joy, whispering something that sounded suspiciously like, enough. But Joy waved her off and continued her tirade. Let me ask you this, she pressed on. When's the last time you actually lived like a normal person? When's the last time you cooked your own dinner, cleaned your own house, paid your own bills? Meryl tilted her head, her lips pressed into a thin, polite line. I cook for my family every night I'm home, she answered. And I've worked hard enough to be able to hire help when I need it. I won't apologize for that. Oh, of course you won't, Joy said, clapping her hands together theatrically, because you think you're above everyone. That's the problem. The insult finally drew a change in Meryl's demeanor. Her posture stiffened and her eyes narrowed, just slightly. You don't know me, Joy, she said, her voice carrying a quiet authority that instantly silenced the room. You don't know what I've given up. You don't know the sacrifices I've made for this career, for my family, for my principles. But Joy wasn't finished. Sacrifices? She laughed bitterly. You've never sacrificed anything. Everything just falls in your lap. You play a sad woman on screen for a few months, and people throw awards at you. Meanwhile, real women out here are raising kids, working 2 jobs, and actually struggling. That last jab made Meryl's hands tighten visibly around the arms of her chair. Her jaw set, and though her voice remained steady, the words came out sharper now. How dare you diminish what any artist does? Do you think it's easy to pour your soul into a role? To give pieces of yourself away for decades? Just because it doesn't look like your struggle doesn't mean it isn't real. The crowd broke into applause again, but Joy raised her voice to drown them out. Oh, cry me a river, you wear a fancy dress, say a few lines, and everyone thinks you're a saint. Tell me, Meryl, do you even remember what it feels like to fail? Or has it been too long? For the first time, Meryl's composure visibly cracked. Her eyes flashed with something hot. Anger, hurt, maybe both. She leaned forward slightly, her voice low but chilling. Every artist fails, Joy. Every single one. But we learn. We grow. We don't sit behind a desk tearing other people down to feel better about ourselves. The audience gasped. And then, to Joy's visible irritation, they began clapping and even cheering. But Joy, clearly stung, only dug in harder. You're just proving my point, she shouted. You think you're so much better than everyone else. You can't even take a little criticism without making yourself the victim." Meryl stood her ground, her voice unwavering now, despite the flush in her cheeks. "This isn't criticism, Joy. Criticism is about the work. What you're doing is personal. It's cruel. And frankly, it's beneath you." That line drew more applause, louder this time, more sustained. Joy's face flushed red as she struggled to regain control. "Beneath me?" she scoffed. "No, Meryl, you're beneath me, sitting here pretending to care about the little people while you cash million-dollar checks and play dress-up." The air in the studio seemed to thicken. Even the camera operators had stopped moving, their lenses trained on the two women locked in verbal combat. Meryl leaned back in her chair now, folding her hands in her lap as if to center herself. But when she spoke, her voice was icy. "It must be exhausting," she said, "to wake up every morning and look for someone else to blame for your bitterness." That line hit Joy like a slap. She froze for a beat before snapping back. "Oh, don't you dare psychoanalyze me, sweetheart," she hissed. "You don't know anything about me." "And yet here we are," Meryl replied evenly, "with you dissecting my life as though you've lived it yourself." The audience erupted again, this time louder, more decisive, with some even standing to applaud. Joy's hands were trembling now, though she tried to hide it by adjusting her glasses. But her voice still rose above the noise. "You're nothing but a phony," she spat. "A phony with a golden statue in one hand and a superiority complex in the other." For the first time all day, Meryl didn't respond immediately. She simply stared at Joy, her expression cool, inscrutable, almost pitying. And it was that silence, heavier than any words, that made Joy falter. For a brief, flickering moment, she seemed to realize just how far she'd gone. But it didn't last. "You're going to sit there and act like you're better than me, aren't you?" she demanded. "Like you're better than everyone in this room." Meryl blinked slowly, then finally spoke, her voice so quiet that the entire audience hushed to hear it. "No," she said, "but today I am better than you." The audience exploded, clapping, cheering, even whistling. Meryl remained perfectly still, her hands folded neatly, her gaze fixed on Joy. But in her eyes now, there was something new. Resolve. And the storm was far from over. The studio felt like it was holding its breath, every eye locked on Meryl and Joy as their clash reached its breaking point. And then, just when it seemed Meryl's composure might hold forever, Joy pushed one button too many, and the moment that would be replayed for years finally arrived. Joy's face was red now, her voice rising above the applause that still lingered from Meryl's devastating last line. "Better than me?" she repeated, her tone dripping with contempt. "Oh, don't flatter yourself, sweetheart. You're just an overpaid actress with a god complex. You've been playing the same sad woman for 40 years, and everyone's too scared to tell you you're not even good anymore." Gasps shot through the audience, and even a few shocked murmurs from the co-hosts who'd been silently praying the feud would die down. Meryl sat still for a moment, her lips pressed together, her eyes glistening now, but not with tears, with fury. Finally, she placed her hands on the table and stood, slow and deliberate, straightening her shoulders as though she were on stage at the Oscars. "That," she began, her voice low but cutting, "was the cruelest thing you've said all afternoon. And that is saying something." Joy folded her arms, trying to maintain her composure, but it was clear she hadn't expected Meryl to stand, to tower over her like that. "Oh, what? Gonna cry now?" Joy sneered. "You're not on a movie set. There's no director to yell cut." Meryl's jaw tightened. "No, Joy," she said coldly. "I'm not going to cry, but I am going to leave." That made the room go silent again. So quiet you could hear the faint hum of the studio lights overhead. Meryl slowly removed her microphone clip, her fingers steady now, despite the tension radiating from her. "I came here today to talk about my work, to talk about art, storytelling, and the things that bring us together," she said, addressing not Joy anymore, but the audience itself. "But instead, I was ambushed, belittled, insulted." Joy rolled her eyes. "Oh, get over yourself." Meryl ignored her completely. "And the worst part," she continued, her gaze sweeping across the silent crowd, "is not what was said about me, but what it says about this show, about what daytime television has become. A platform not for discussion, but for cruelty. Somewhere in the audience, someone began clapping, softly at first, then louder, joined by others until the studio filled with applause. Joy jumped in over the noise, desperate now to reclaim control. "Oh, sure, walk out like the diva you are. Prove everyone right about you." Meryl turned back to Joy one last time, her expression calm but unflinching. "No, Joy, I'm not walking out because I am a diva. I'm walking out because I have more respect for myself and for these people than to keep playing your game." Joy opened her mouth to respond, but Meryl raised a hand, stopping her cold. "That's enough," Meryl said simply. "We're done." She set the microphone on the table, picked up her purse, and walked toward the stage exit, her heels clicking against the floor, the applause swelling around her as she went. At the edge of the stage, she paused, turned back, and gave the audience a gracious nod. "Thank you," she said softly. "You deserve better than this." And with that, she was gone. The cameras lingered for a long, awkward moment on Joy's face, now pale and tight with frustration, as the other co-hosts scrambled to move on. But the damage was done. The audience and everyone watching at home had seen who came out with dignity intact. And it wasn't Joy. If you thought this story was as intense as we did, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more unbelievable behind-the-scenes Hollywood showdowns. Drop a comment below. Whose side are you on, Meryl or Joy? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Thanks for watching. And until next time, stay tuned for more unforgettable moments.